Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I was lying on my bed that late afternoon, the warm light from the window brushing over my skin as I slowly applied cream along the inside of my thighs. The room was quiet enough that I could hear my own breathing, slow, steady, trying to calm the strange flutter in my chest I couldn't quite explain. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't thinking about anyone. I was simply lost in the soft rhythm of my hands moving across my skin. Then the door clicked. Before I could pull my legs together or even lift my head, the door swung open, and he stepped inside. He froze. Not half a step, not a startled jump, he just stopped completely, like his entire body forgot how to move. His eyes locked on me instantly, wide, stunned, and unblinking, as if the scene in front of him had robbed him of every possible reaction except awe. The air changed in an instant, thicker, warmer, charged with a kind of tension that curled all the way up my spine. My heartbeat kicked hard against my ribs. His breath caught, not loudly, but just enough for me to notice, just enough for the silence between us to feel electric. I could see his chest rise and fall a little quicker than normal, could see his fingers flex slightly at his side as if he wasn't sure whether he should reach for the door, or reach toward me. Neither of us said a word. The stillness was almost overwhelming. I wasn't embarrassed, not fully. It was something else, something more dangerous, something more curious. The way he stared wasn't rude or careless. It was drawn. As though he was trying to pull himself away and couldn't. As though my bare skin, the position I was in, the closeness we weren't supposed to share, was suddenly too much for him to look away from. And the strangest part? I didn't look away either. For a heartbeat, 2, maybe 3, our eyes met, really met, holding something unspoken but undeniably real. A quiet spark. A breathless awareness. A feeling that neither of us had planned for. Finally, he parted his lips slightly, as if he was about to say something. Something important. Something he had never said before. But before the words could come out, something unexpected happened, something that would change the rest of the moment entirely. The door stayed half open behind him, but neither of us moved to close it. The silence pressed in, thick with things we'd never said. And suddenly, everything between us, everything we'd been ignoring, hiding, pretending wasn't there, started to rise to the surface. He finally stepped back, clearing his throat, muttering a soft apology before closing the door behind him. But that look, the way he paused, the way his eyes lingered just one breath longer than necessary, it stayed with me. It wasn't the first time something like that had happened between us. Not exactly like this, but close. Our relationship had always been complicated, full of little cracks we refused to look at directly. We told ourselves we were fine. Good communicators. Mature, responsible, emotionally stable. But beneath that polished surface were unspoken wants, unmet needs, and moments we brushed off too quickly. He had always been distant at times, thoughtful, yet guarded. The type who would stand close enough for warmth but step back before anything could mean something. And I learned how to hide my questions, even from myself. Why he lingered in doorways when he didn't have to. Why he remembered small details about me no one else did. Why my heartbeat changed whenever his hand accidentally brushed mine, those quick sparks neither of us dared talk about. These tiny moments strung themselves together over months. A shared laugh that lasted a second too long. A glance that settled deeper than it should have. A conversation at midnight where we opened up more than either of us planned. They weren't wrong, just dangerous in the way a flame becomes dangerous when held too close to paper. Today was different. When he walked in on me, something shifted with a force neither of us expected. Not because of the scene itself, but because of everything we had been avoiding. That charged silence didn't come out of nowhere. It was built from every unspoken word between us. Later that evening, I found him in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of water. He didn't notice me at first, his expression heavy, like he was replaying what happened just as much as I was. When he finally looked up, his eyes softened. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "I should be asking you that," I answered, trying to hide the smile tugging at my lips. He let out a breath, rubbed the back of his neck, and looked away for a moment. "I didn't mean to surprise you." "That wasn't the surprising part," I replied. His gaze snapped back to mine. Something flickered there, recognition, maybe. Or desire he didn't know how to hide anymore. He didn't step closer, but he didn't step away either. And that tiny space between us filled with a new kind of tension, slow, warm, and utterly undeniable. Whatever happened in that bedroom had opened a door we both knew we couldn't close again. But neither of us had the courage yet to walk through it. Not until someone, forced the truth into the open. And that moment was coming sooner than either of us expected. The next few days were a dance of unspoken words and stolen glances. Every encounter felt heavier than the last, as if the air around us had thickened with the weight of things we could no longer ignore. I caught him looking at me across the room more than once, his eyes lingering too long on the curve of my shoulder, the subtle movement of my hand, the way my hair fell over my collarbone. And each time, my chest would tighten, my breath catching just slightly, reminding me that desire wasn't something we could easily control. But there were other moments that stung. A friend of his stopped by unexpectedly, laughing too close, brushing against him casually. I watched the way he shifted, his attention momentarily pulled away, and a pang of jealousy struck me harder than I expected. My pulse raced, not from fear, not from anger, but from the sudden, undeniable clarity of how much I wanted him all to myself. He noticed my stare, of course, and his reaction was subtle but impossible to ignore. A flicker of guilt, a touch of regret, but beneath it, something warmer, charged, and undeniable. The tension between us grew not from anger, but from the slow, simmering awareness that every stolen moment, every accidental brush of fingers, was bringing us closer to a line neither of us was supposed to cross. One evening, we ended up in the living room alone. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, pretending to scroll on my phone, while he leaned casually against the doorway. But neither of us was really pretending. Every movement was deliberate. Every breath was measured. And then, the room seemed to shrink around us. His gaze met mine, slow and deliberate, daring me to look away. My heartbeat thundered in my chest as a shiver ran down my spine. That quiet, teasing, charged silence stretched, begging for something neither of us was brave enough to admit aloud. I could almost feel the temptation vibrating between us, dangerous, thrilling, impossible to ignore. The forbidden pull of it made my fingers fidget in my lap, my thoughts racing, knowing that one word, one step, one glance could tip everything over. And in that moment, we both understood, the game had changed. The calm of nothing happening was gone. All that remained was the electric tension of wanting, and knowing that giving in could change everything. The evening had settled into a quiet hush, the kind that made every sound, every footstep, every sigh, feel louder than it should. We found ourselves alone in the study, the door closed softly behind us, the world outside fading to a distant hum. He was standing near the window, backlit by the soft glow of streetlights, and I could see the way the light caught his profile, sharp and captivating. I moved closer under the pretense of needing a book from the shelf, but every step I took seemed to shorten the invisible space between us, and I could feel the pull of it, magnetic, impossible to ignore. When I reached for the book, our hands brushed lightly. A spark ran up my arm, sending my pulse racing. He didn't pull away. Instead, his fingers lingered just a fraction longer than necessary, the brush of skin charged with unspoken words. My breath hitched, and I could feel the heat building between us, a dangerous warmth that neither of us wanted to name. We talked, at first about nothing, the weather, a passing memory, the hum of our shared space. But the words were flimsy shields, paper thin against the tide of tension swirling just beneath the surface. Every glance, every subtle shift of weight, every soft inhale was laced with anticipation. Then the moment came, an unexpected laugh, a hand accidentally grazing mine, a step that closed the gap further than either of us intended. My chest was tight, his eyes were dark, unreadable, and I realized that the air between us had transformed into something almost unbearable. It was no longer casual. It was no longer safe. And just as I thought I could catch my composure, he stepped closer. Closer than ever before. The room seemed to shrink, our shadows merging under the dim light. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, my skin tingling, every nerve alive with the knowledge that the line we had been circling was finally within reach. We stopped. Inches apart. Neither of us moving, but the world around us blurred into insignificance. That charged silence stretched endlessly, both terrifying and irresistible, and in that instant, I knew we were on the brink of something irreversible. And then, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house, abrupt and unexpected. Both of us froze, the moment shattered. And just like that, everything hung in the balance. The front door slammed, and in an instant, the tension in the study shattered, but not entirely. My pulse still raced, the lingering closeness between us electric and impossible to ignore. I turned toward the sound, only to find him staring at me, confusion and something else, something deeper, flashing in his eyes. It wasn't the unexpected visitor that caught me off guard. It was the note in his hand. He had picked it up from the floor, a small slip of paper I hadn't noticed, folded and tucked between the pages of the book I had been reaching for. I didn't expect this, he muttered, voice low, trembling just enough for me to hear it. What is it? My hands shook slightly, though I tried to steady them. He unfolded the note, his eyes scanning the lines quickly, then widened. My stomach dropped. The words written on that paper were from someone else, someone who claimed feelings for him, someone who wanted more than friendship. And the message wasn't hidden. It was a confession, a declaration, a temptation thrown straight into our fragile bubble. I couldn't speak. My chest tightened. The warmth I had felt just moments ago twisted into something heavier, jealousy, fear, uncertainty. I realized in that moment how much I had wanted him, how much I feared losing the unspoken bond we had been nurturing. He looked at me then, not the letter, not the threat, but me. His eyes softened, but there was a vulnerability there I hadn't seen before. I didn't know what to do, he admitted, voice breaking slightly. I didn't expect anyone else to feel this way. I only ever want this with you. The words hit me like a jolt. A mixture of relief and intensity surged through me. My fingers twitched, and without thinking, I reached for his hand. Our eyes locked again, stronger than ever, unspoken feelings finally given permission to exist in the open. The twist had been unexpected, yes. The threat had been real. But it had also forced the truth into the light. We wanted each other, not as a casual fantasy, not as a fleeting thought, but with a raw, undeniable intensity that neither of us could ignore. We stayed like that for a long moment, hands barely touching, hearts racing, the storm of emotions around us balanced on a knife's edge. The house was silent, but the energy between us was louder than any noise, louder than the slam of doors or the rustle of paper. And in that charged silence, I realized, the danger wasn't outside. The danger was in the truth itself, and I was ready to face it. We both knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. The note had done its work. It had ripped through the fragile calm we had been holding on to, exposing every buried emotion, every unspoken desire. Now, we were left with the aftermath, and there was no hiding from it. We sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the dim light casting long shadows across our faces. My hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, as I tried to steady my racing heart. He stared at me, silent at first, then let out a heavy sigh, the kind that carries a mix of regret and determination. I should have told you sooner, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I shouldn't have let things fester. I never meant to make you feel like this. I swallowed hard, feeling the sting of the jealousy, the fear, the longing, all of it twisting in my chest. "And yet here we are," I said, voice trembling. "You left me thinking you could belong somewhere else, even if just for a moment." He winced, and the raw honesty of his expression hit me harder than words ever could. "I don't belong anywhere else. Not with anyone else. Only with you. I was scared of ruining what we have." The vulnerability in his confession made my heart ache. All the tension, all the uncertainty, all the fiery attraction that had been building over weeks, it boiled to the surface now, unfiltered. I leaned forward, placing my hand over his. The touch was simple, but electric, grounding us amidst the whirlwind of emotions. "I was scared too," I admitted. "Scared that wanting you this much would make everything complicated." He nodded, and the weight of silence stretched between us, but it was different this time. Softer, warmer, full of understanding. The storm of jealousy, temptation, and fear had passed its peak, leaving only the raw, undeniable connection between us. "We can't undo what happened," he said finally, eyes locking with mine. "But we can decide what happens next." I smiled, a small, shaky smile that was full of relief and hope. "Then let's decide together." For the first time in weeks, we allowed ourselves to simply be present, to feel the closeness, the electricity, the quiet promise that lingered in every glance and every breath. The choice had been made, not rashly, not blindly, but deliberately. Together. And in that shared understanding, the tension that had threatened to tear us apart finally transformed into something else, a foundation, fragile but strong, upon which something lasting could be built. The chapter of uncertainty had ended. What remained was the possibility of something beautiful. The tension that had consumed us for weeks finally melted away that evening. After the emotional confrontations and the storm of jealousy, we found ourselves on the couch, wrapped in a blanket together, the quiet hum of the night surrounding us. The world outside didn't matter anymore. It was just the two of us, and for the first time, that felt enough. He reached over, brushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering at my cheek. The gesture was gentle, intimate, full of care, and it made my chest swell with a warmth I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. I leaned into his touch, eyes closing briefly, savoring the calm after the chaos. "I'm sorry for everything," he murmured, voice low but steady. "For making you doubt me. For the silence. For letting my fears get in the way of what we have." I smiled softly, shaking my head. "No. We both had our fears. But look at us now, we made it through." His eyes softened, and he tucked a blanket around both of us, his arms slipping around my shoulders naturally. It was not a grand gesture, not a dramatic declaration, but the simplicity of it spoke volumes. Safety. Trust. Connection. All the things we had skirted around, all the feelings we had tried to hide, finally had a home. We sat there in silence for a while, hearts slowly sinking, breathing slowly evening out, the kind of silence that wasn't empty but full of possibility, full of understanding. "I never realized," I whispered, my head resting against his shoulder, "how much I needed this, you." He chuckled softly, the sound low and warm, and pressed a gentle kiss to the top of my head. "And I never realized how much I needed you. Not just here," he said, tapping his chest lightly, "but here," he added, holding my hand over his heart. That small, tender moment made the world fade completely. The storm was behind us, and ahead was a future that felt bright, unshakable. Every glance, every touch, every quiet laugh we shared from that night forward became a small promise, a vow to nurture this bond we had fought so hard to claim. And as the night deepened, we stayed there, wrapped in each other, hearts beating in rhythm, knowing that whatever challenges came next, we had already discovered the most important truth, that we belonged together. It wasn't a sudden spark, it was a steady flame. Warm, comforting, passionate, and enduring, a love that had been tested and emerged stronger.